So, fella, this week we got UFC 316, the greatest bantamweight of all time against Sugar Sean O'Malley, the fight that nobody asked for. But you know what? It's a pretty decent card. If I had to rate the card for a pay-per-view, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. We've seen worse for pay-per-view cards. I'm not going to complain about it. It's a decent little card. And we'll go in there with the first fight. Quinlan Salkilld returns against Yanal Ashmouz. I can't remember the last time Yanal Ashmouz was in the octagon. It's been a while. But I'm going to be going with Quinlan Salkilld to win this one by decision. Quinlan Salkild's a very good boxer. Obviously, we just saw him at UFC 312. Bit of a controversial finish, but knocked out Anshul Jubilee in super quick fashion. And Yanal Ashmouz is like a T-Rex. The dude has to have one of the shortest reaches for the, I think it's the 155-pound division. Very short reach, but we did just see him get outclassed by Chris Duncan a couple of fights ago. Fair enough, he had a broken arm in that fight, and Chris Duncan's on a bit of a roll, but he's not really known for his striking, so I'm going to go Quinlan Salkilld to win this one by decision. I think the main factor on picking Quinlan Salkilld to win this fight is the range. I'm pretty sure there's like a 5-inch reach advantage for Quinlan Salkilld in this fight. He's quite a big 155er, and Yanal Ashmouz is tiny for the division. He's got super short arms. Now, he'd managed to knock out Sam Patterson, who's also huge for the division, but Sam Patterson was never built for 155, so I do think it's going to be competitive. I don't think the betting odds should be in that big of a favor of Quinlan Salkilld to win this fight, because Yanal Ashmouz definitely packs a punch, pretty decent striker, tough as nails as well, but I think Quinlan Salkilld has displayed on the Contender Series and in his UFC debut that he's got pretty solid boxing. I think the range is going to be too much, as I see Quinlan Salkilld kind of picking apart Yanal Ashmouz across 3 rounds. The range is just sticking that jab in his face, keeping a bit of range. I'm going to go with Quinlan Salkilld to win this one by decision. The keys to victory for Salkilld is going to be to use your reach, piece him up at range, and don't get backed up. You don't want to be against the fence when you're facing Yanal Ashmouz. Watch out for the overhand right from hell, because that's literally all Yanal Ashmouz is going to be spamming the entire fight. We've seen it in the fight with Chris Duncan and Sam Patterson. And stay technical. Don't bro with him. I'd say what's his name? Quinlan Salkilld is definitely the more technical striker, so I'd keep it technical, outbox him across 3 rounds, and just pick him apart. And for Yanal Ashmouz, it's to put the pressure on early so he's backed up against the cage. Don't just have a technical striking matchup with him, because he's way longer and he's probably more technical. Back him up, get on the inside, aim for the body, and then launch a nasty overhand right, because I really don't see Yanal Ashmouz picking apart Quinlan Salkilld across 3 rounds. I think if he's going to win, it's going to be some Hail Mary overhand right shot like he landed on Sam Patterson. So those are the keys to victory. I'm going to go with Quinlan Salkilld. Then we have Marquel Mederos, who was supposed to fight last week against Mark Choinski, making his UFC debut. Yeah, I'm going to go with Marquel Mederos to win this one by decision. Marquel Mederos is a pretty legit striker. We saw it in the Contender Series, and even though he kind of slowed down in his UFC debut and in his last couple of UFC fights, he's still very quick on the feet for 155. Mark Choinski, from what I've seen, he looks good on the regional scene, but he's facing absolute cans. He's not really had a great regional run. He's facing easy fighters. He does like to mix it with the grappling. I think the majority of his wins are by submission, so he seems to be a bit of a well-rounded fighter, but I'm going to be going with Marquel Mederos to win this one by decision. The fact that he does it on short notice for Mark Choinski, and Marquel Mederos has just had a full training camp, but I don't see this being competitive on the feet. I think Marquel Mederos, much better striker, much quicker striker, and we've seen it in his last 2 fights. I can see him picking apart Mark Choinski pretty comfortably on the feet, and I know we just mentioned Mark Choinski has the grappling, but we saw Marquel Mederos get put in bad position against Austin Hubbard, who came from the Ultimate Fighter, in his last fight, and he was able to escape those positions with relatively low danger as well. So I think Marquel Mederos keeps this fight standing across 3 rounds. He's had a full training camp. Mark Choinski hasn't really been beating decent opponents on the regional scene, and I just see him completely picking apart Mark Choinski in this fight. I think Marquel Mederos gets this one done by a pretty comfortable decision. The keys to victory for Marquel Mederos is to outclass Choinski on the feet. You're much more technical, you're much quicker, much better striker than Mark Choinski, so keep the fight standing and outclass him, and be willing for his gas tank to be lesser. I don't expect Mark Choinski on short notice to have the greatest gas tank, so be willing for his gas tank to be lesser. For Mark Choinski, it's to try and mix up the grappling at every opportunity. That's where I'd say he's all got the best chance. Like I said before, we saw Marquel Mederos get put in bad positions in his last fight. That's where Choinski has an advantage. Mix the striking up with the grappling, and don't just empty the tank for your UFC nerves in the first round. Those are the keys to victory. I'm going to go Marquel Mederos. We then have potential for a bonus. I don't see this going to... I don't even see this making it past the first round. Khaos Williams, who I think was supposed to fight last week, against Andreas Gustaffson, who was also supposed to fight last week, which tells you everything about last week's card with the amount of pullouts on this card. Now, I've been excited to see Andreas Gustaffson debut in the UFC for quite some time. Every single time he's got a fight booked, it always gets postponed. And I was picking him to win his last fight, but I'm not picking him to beat Khaos Williams. I'm going to go Khaos Williams to win this one by KO in the first round. Williams is a very, very powerful dude for the welterweight division. It hits like an absolute truck, and we've seen it before. He's got dynamite hands. And even though Andreas Gustaffson might be one of the most exciting fighters on the regional scene, I don't know if he's ready you know, to face a guy like Khaos Williams in his UFC debut. He's very hittable as well. He's Gustaffson. He's kind of like I keep saying this, but a kill or be killed fighter. Very, very dangerous, but also very vulnerable at the same time. He's absolute wars on the regional scene. But I don't know if he can afford to have those brawls on those walls against a guy like Khaos Williams, who has so much more devastating punching power. You can't be having a scrap with Khaos Williams, because if you connect one clean one, you're done for. So I'm gonna go Khaos Williams to win this one by KO in the first round. He's lost like last couple of losses. Randy Brown, best unranked welterweight. Bonfim getting a chance at the top 15. He's got serious power, does Khaos Williams. He hasn't got terrible grappling as well. And for Andreas Gustaffson, great fighter, pretty heavy-handed dude, but I think his type of style doesn't favour someone who hits as hard as Khaos Williams. I think Khaos Williams gets him out there in the first. KO in the first round for Khaos Williams, but like I said before, I would be very surprised if this goes to distance, and I think there could be potential for a bonus to be on this fight. Keys to victory. For Khaos Williams, it's to brawl and knock him out. It's that simple. And for Andreas Gustaffson, it's to brawl and knock him out, because I don't see either of them winning either way. I think the more technical guy would be Khaos Williams, but for Andreas Gustaffson, he's got to hope that he manages to land clean on Khaos Williams, and for Khaos Williams, he's kind of got to capitalize on that crazy style of Gustaffson, clip him, and put him to sleep. Pretty similar game plan, should make for a great fight. Then we've got a fight that should probably be higher on the card. Azamat Murzakanov, undefeated, taking on Brendson Ribeiro. Now, Murzakanov, obviously just beat Manyfield, so you might be thinking why he's got this matchup. He's returning off a suspension because he actually ended up taking steroids. I don't know how he takes steroids and still look like a fat bastard, but I'm going to go with Azamat Murzakanov to win this one, and I'm actually going to go decision. I know a lot of people probably aren't going to be picking this fight to win in a decision. Murzakanov's got a lot of finishes, Ribeiro's got a lot of finishes, but I think stylistically, it could go to a decision, but I'm going to go with Murzakanov to win this one. We've seen the devastating power, we've seen the devastating boxing of Azamat Murzakanov in the UFC against scrappy guys like Alonzo Manyfield and like lower level fighters. He has got pretty solid boxing to Murzakanov, and I know a lot of people like to critique his gas tank, but he has massively improved. He's got really good boxing, really good movement. He's actually quite athletic as well for the light heavyweight division. He's Azamat Murzakanov. And Brendson Ribeiro, still kind of like a rangy technical striker who likes to mix it up with the grappling, but again, he's not the best, the highest level striker. We've seen him get outclassed in the UFC against lower level guys. That fight with Kyle Machado's not even in the UFC anymore. He took him to a close decision. So I just think that Murzakanov's infinitely the more technical guy, but I think the height and the range of Brendson Ribeiro is going to keep him in this fight. He hasn't been finished by, well, he didn't get finished by Gadzhi Zulov. His only other finished loss was to Mingyang Zhang, who's an absolute beast. And we saw the fight with Dustin Jacoby with Azamat Murzakanov, where he started to face a technical striker, and yes, he won, but he wasn't able to get him out of there. So I'm going to go with Murzakanov to win this one. I think he completely pieces apart Brendson Ribeiro. I don't see this being really competitive in this fight. If there is going to be a finish, it is going to come in way of Murzakanov by some sort of late TKO, I think, but I do think it is going to go to a decision. Murzakanov just picks him apart with the boxing, backs him up against the cage, lands a couple of shots, maybe puts him in some dangerous situations, because I just think he's a much better striker than Ribeiro, but I think the range of Ribeiro is going to cause Murzakanov a few problems, but I'm going to go with Murzakanov by decision. The keys to victory for Azamat Murzakanov is to brawl with him and knock him back to the fight nights. That's that's a good key to victory. It's worked in his other fights. Pressure him and be cautious of the takedowns. I do expect Brendson Ribeiro to shoot a few takedowns. We saw it in his last fight where he submitted Nurgazai, so be cautious of the takedowns. It's not just going to be a striking matchup, and for Brendson Ribeiro, grapple heavy game plan. Set the takedowns up with the striking. I would not recommend striking with Murzakanov, a guy with devastating power and much better boxing. You've got to kind of mix up the grappling and use your range on the feet and avoid brawling with Murzakanov. Your best chance of winning a decision is to just keep it technical on the feet with Murzakanov and use your range. Don't brawl with him because you're just end up getting put to sleep, but I'm going to go with Murzakanov by decision. We've then got Ju Sang-yu versus Jeka Saragih. Now I'm going to go with Ju Sang-yu by KO in the first round. I've looked at Sang-yu on the regional scene because I haven't seen him before. He looks fucking good, man. Really, really good striker. Really crafty, technical striker. And again, he's not facing the highest level guys, but even on the regional scene, he looks very good for his kickboxing. And I think he can go far in this 155-pound division. Very slick striker. And we've seen him implement grappling before on the regional scene as well. It's not like he's super one-dimensional. He's got decent grappling, but I think the striking of Ju Sang-yu is just completely on a different level to Saragih. I mean, this guy got finished by Anshel Jubilee as well. Got taken down and dominated by Anshel Jubilee the entire fight. So I really do feel like wherever the fight goes, Ju Sang-yu has an advantage. I understand that Saragih is a pretty dangerous dude. He packs a punch, pretty hard-hitting guy, and we saw that in the fight with Lucas Alexander, and we saw it on the regional scene as well, but Ju Sang-yu looks slick on the feet, looks to be the superior grappler out of the two of them. You can't even make the argument that Jeka Saragih's been beating high-level guys, because in the UFC, Lucas Alexander, I'm pretty sure he's not even in the UFC anymore, so I'm going to go with Ju Sang-yu to win this one by KO in the first round. I just think he's going to showboat with him and then down that shot. It looks very impressive on the regional scene, very good kickboxer, and I think he can go far at 155. Keys to victory for Ju Sang-yu. It's the style on him. You're fighting on a pay-per-view in the UFC, in your UFC debut, you haven't had to go on the Contender Series. Fucking style on Saragih. You're the infinitely better striker. Don't put yourself in dumb situations where you could get knocked out, but just put on a show and then go for the kill and get him out of there. And if worst comes to worst, if for some reason Saragih actually makes it competitive on the feet, just take him down and dominate him. The guy that got dominated by Anshel Jubilee, so take him down, dominate him. I really do feel like Jusang, you can win this fight wherever. And for Sergei, it's to force him into a dogfight, and I don't know, bro. Just force him into a dogfight, make it dirty, try and land that big shot on the feet to put him to sleep. But apart from that, you got to be praying, because I don't know. Then we've got actually a pretty decent fight in the heavyweight division. Sergei Spivac returns against Waldo Cortes Acosta, probably the lowest level fighter that Spivac has fought. Not lowest level, lowest ranked fighter that Sergei Spivac has fought in a while. Spivac's game plan's very simple. He likes to use pressure boxing as soon as the fight starts to get in the clinch. Once he's got you in the clinch, he wants to trip you to the ground and look to win via submission. Against Waldo Cortes Acosta, who seems to be more of a striker, really good boxer with pretty devastating punching power as well, as he's shown a few times in the UFC. I want to go with Sergei Spivac. He's got some really good wins, some of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the heavyweight division. He nearly beat Almeida in his last fight, but Spivac's such an inconsistent fighter. I'm actually going to go with Waldo Cortes Acosta to win this one by decision. Sergei Spivac, he's a quitter, essentially. He quits at the first phase of adversity in every single one of his fights. That fight with Jelton Almeida, he was winning that fight. He took one bad right hand from Almeida, who's got no power at all, and he decided to carry up and get finished. He's got zero heart at all, and Waldo Cortes Acosta has been an absolute roll. Beat Rebelis to Spain with the wrestling, outstruck Orlovsky, knocked out Lucas Brzezinski, just put Ryan Spann to sleep as well. I see Waldo Costa keeping this fight on the feet, and I think Waldo Cortes Acosta is a lot better suited for 3 rounds than Spivac. Like I said before, Spivac is either a kill or be killed. He likes taking you down and getting the submission. If he can't do that and he starts getting adversity, he just decides to quit. And I feel like Waldo Cortes Acosta across 3 rounds, much more reliable dude, much better striker than Spivac, much more devastating puncher, and I just don't see Spivac being able to take down and dominate Acosta. We've seen Acosta, but we haven't really seen too much grappling from Acosta in the UFC. We're assuming the fact with Rebelis to Spain, but that's the dude with zero grappling. But yeah, I think Waldo Cortes Acosta keeps this fight standing and just picks apart Sergei Spivac across 15 minutes. Could even get a late finish because, like I said before, Spivac's a punching bag. When he can't get you out there early, he turns into a punching bag. So as much as I want to go with Spivac because, you know, he's got these grappling credentials, he's got some really good wins on his record, I can't trust him to win a fight because he just quits. He's got no heart at all. Waldo Cortes Acosta has been on a roll. I feel like for Waldo Cortes Acosta, he's kind of his limit in the heavyweight division. He's like the top 5. So I think when he gets to like the Curtis Blades, the Volkovs, the Pavloviches, that's when he's probably going to fall short. But I can see him being like a top 6, top 7 guy for quite some time, like a better version of Marcin Tybura. So I'm going to pick him to win this one by decision. Picks apart Spivac, rides out to a decision and gets to win. Keys to victory for Sergei Spivac. It's to close the distance and pressure him with the boxing, like he normally does. Get him in the clinch, trip him, and then look for submissions or control time. And I'll add on top of that as well, don't just quit. If you make it to the second round, if you can't get him out there in the first exchange, don't just quit and turn into a punching bag. Keep trying to get the win. And for Waldo Cortes Acosta, back him up, keep him on the back foot, piece him up until he quits, and the longer the fight goes, the less heart he has, and therefore your bigger opportunity you have of winning. So Waldo Cortes Acosta, I'm picking him to win this one by just picking apart Spivac across 15 minutes and keeping the fight standing. We then have actually a pretty decent fight in women MMA. Ariana de Silva versus Wang Cong, who was one of the best prospects, got beaten by Gabriela Fernandez, but picked up a win over Bruno Brazil in the last fight. Yeah, Wang Kong's going to absolutely style on Lipski de Silva. I feel like the UFC have only really put this fight on to show the striking of Wang Cong. Wang Cong was a massive prospect in I think it's the flyweight division because she just highlighted amazing striking, really good striker. Came from a kickboxing background, very dangerous striker as well. She hits like an absolute truck for the women's flyweight division, and she just picks apart already. Like Bruno Brazil's a solid striker, and Wang Cong put an absolute beating on her. And Lipski de Silva's been finished a few times. She doesn't really seem to be the highest level striker. Seems to have a more of a grappling game plan in the UFC. I think this is quite a bad matchup for Lipski de Silva. So I think that Wang Kong's going to completely pick her apart across 15 minutes, take her to a decision, and get a pretty dominant unanimous decision win. Now I'm even tempted to pick Wang Cong to win this one by some sort of finish later on in the fight, but how much can you really bet on a women MMA fight and then in a stoppage? I'm not sure. I'm going to go Wang Cong to win this one by decision. And hopefully after this, she gets somebody in the top 10 of the division. Because I really do feel like even though she lost to Fernandez, you've got to remember she was dominating that fight with Fernandez and then she got taken down and submitted, obviously. I don't see De Silva doing the same thing to Wang Cong. I think Wang Kong's learned since that fight. She looked really good against Bruno Brazil at UFC 312. She's going to get a dominant decision win, keeps the fight standing and completely picks apart Lipski de Silva. Now for Lipski de Silva, the game plan is to mix up the grappling early. It's her biggest weakness and we'll keep her guessing. Like I said before, Wang Cong, if there is a weakness, it's not in the striking, it's in the grappling. So Lipski de Silva can capitalize on that and stay awkward. Don't try and have a kickboxing match with her. Don't try and have a technical kickboxing match like Bruno Brazil did. You ain't winning against Wang Cong. And for Wang Cong, It's to bully her on the feet. Significantly the better striker. Keep the fight standing and bully her. And do keep in mind the grappling. Don't just get too comfortable on the feet like you did against Gabriela Fernandez. You'll get taken down and submitted. So keep in mind the grappling, but just keep it on the feet and completely bully her on the feet. And then we have, I think, the featured prelim, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. Joshua Van's so active, man. I think he fought at UFC 310, then at UFC 313, and now he's already back for UFC 316. This should be a really interesting fight. Bruno Silva, very, very high-paced flyweight. Joshua Van, very, very high-paced flyweight. Bruno Silva, pretty devastating puncher in the flyweight division, whereas Joshua Van, a lot more technical, a lot more kind of, just really technical, piecing people up in his boxing in the flyweight division. So it's going to be a really good fight for the flyweight division. I kind of wish that Joshua Van, and I know a lot of people, this might be a bit of a hot take, I kind of wish he wasn't as active. Obviously, I'm not going to complain about a fighter being active, but I feel like it'd do him better for his career if he took a little bit longer in between each fights, maybe to sort a few things out, maybe develop some punching power, because the technique's there. He's one of the best boxers in this division, but regardless, I am obviously going to go with Joshua getting the Van to win this one by decision. Joshua Van is probably the best boxer in, well, I know we've got Brandon Moreno and Steve Erceg and whatnot, but he's definitely one of the best boxers in this division. The absolute beating he put on Cody Durden was brutal, and we saw Cody Durden against Bruno Silva. I know MMA math doesn't really work, but Cody Durden, who's predominantly a wrestler, made it competitive on the feet with Bruno Silva until obviously he got knocked out. And also we just saw Bruno Silva get his ass handed to him by Manel Kape. Again, I know Manel Kape's probably at this moment in time much higher level than Joshua Van, but I just see Joshua Van having a great performance. He's been super active. He's fought twice already this year, I think, so, or at least once this year at UFC 310 as well. So I think Joshua Van wins this one. Much better striker. And Bruno Silva, yes, he might be the more devastating puncher, but I don't see him landing anything super significant on Joshua Van. You need a rangy guy to do that. And even if he tries mixing it with the grappling, Joshua Van might have some of the best takedown defense in this division. His takedown defense is on point. I think he's got a super high percentage when it comes to takedown, takedown defense. So I'm picking Joshua Van to ride this one out, get a pretty comfortable win with the boxing, ride it out to a decision, and just pick apart Bruno Silva until he gets a solid unanimous decision. Now, the keys to victory for Bruno Silva, it's to use the feints. He's got a really good job at feinting, does Bruno Silva. Keep Joshua Van in the back foot and land the bigger strikes, look to finish him. You're probably not going to out-technique Joshua Van in the feet. Try and land the bigger strikes, just like Charles Johnson did, and look to get the finish. And for Joshua Van, it's to just walk him down and batter him, as always. Be cautious, but mess him up with the boxing. Don't just swing for the fences. You know, Bruno Silva's got some decent punching power, and keep the elite takedown defense. I do suspect that Bruno Silva might shoot a takedown in this fight, but I think Joshua Van is pretty comfortable keeping this fight standing, picking him apart with the boxing, and riding out to a decision. Then we have the first fight on the main card, Vicente Luque against another very active fighter in Kevin Holland. Now, this should be an interesting fight because Vicente Luque, he's been finished in it a couple of times recently, and it seems like his biggest weakness does seem to be power punches. And we know about Kevin Holland. This guy hits like a truck. Many people in the welterweight and the middleweight division have said that Kevin Holland is one of the hardest hitters they've faced. It's no surprise that he's a power puncher, and I think that's a stylistic nightmare for Vicente Luque. I think Kevin Holland wins this one by TKO in the first round. Vicente Luque was once a prospect, but that guy just seems like an old dog waiting to get finished now. You know, he's taken so much damage throughout his career. I know he's just come off a really good performance against Temba Garimbo, but that was via submission, and I don't see him submitting Kevin Holland. I think even though Holland's got pretty shit wrestling, I don't think his grappling's as bad as people making out to be. We saw that in his last fight against Gunnar Nelson, so I think Holland knocks him out in the first round, or at least gets a TKO. Vicente Luque takes way too much damage, way too hittable in all of his fights. He got destroyed by Jeff Neal, easily destroyed by Joaquin Buckley. He beat Dos Santos by decision, but we're talking about an old Dos Santos. Got beaten by Bilal Muhammad comfortably as well. So Vicente Luque isn't the same guy. Kind of reminds me of Darren Elkins. You know, one of these old kind of washed guys that takes way too much damage. And Kevin Holland, I know he's one of the most inconsistent fighters in the UFC, but I think since he's come down to welterweight, this is definitely his division. He's a lot more suited to welterweight. It looked really good against Gunnar Nelson in his last fight, and I think the power of Kevin Holland is going to be enough to get Vicente Luque out there in the first round. So I think Holland is going to clip Vicente Luque with a big shot, wobble him, get the TKO in the first round. Holland's going to get this one done in the first. Keys to victory for Vicente Luque. It's to mix in the striking with the grappling. I think that's definitely his best game plan. He's got some solid BJJ and also some solid striking. Mix them both up. Pressure him. Don't strike at range. You don't want to be getting rangy with Kevin Holland, who's huge for the welterweight division, and make it a dogfight but stay defensive. Vicente Luque's looked good before when he's kind of in a dogfight, but I'm not talking like, you know, just swing for the fences, have a brawl, because like I said, the punching power of Kevin Holland is too devastating to just have a dogfight with him. So make it a dogfight but do stay defensive. And for Kevin Holland, it's to pick him apart on the feet, leave him a bloody mess, and try and crack the chin. You're the much better striker. Leave him in a complete bloody mess, have a brawl with him, pick him apart, and look to crack the chin and stay rangy but don't get backed up. And I say that because of the takedowns of Vicente Luque. You know, Kevin Holland's notorious for getting taken down. You don't want to get taken down, and, you know, you don't want that to be the result of this fight. So stay rangy, but don't get backed up. Don't get too comfortable, but I do think Holland's going to clip him and finish him in the first round. Then we have the debut of one of the best fighters outside of the UFC in Patchy Mix, as he takes on one of the most hated fighters in the UFC right now, Mario Batista. Patchy Mix is going to finish him. I'm going Patchy Mix to win this one by submission. This ain't Patricio Pitbull at 38 years old. Patchy Mix, I think he's a top 5 bantamweight in the worworld, like, including the UFC. I honestly think that. Patchy Mix has looked amazing outside the UFC. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, who's amazing. And like I said before, he's in prime as well. He's not one of these 38-year-old fighters who's washed from Bellator like a Michael Chandler coming over to the UFC. The dude's in his prime. We know what Mario Batista's game plan tends to be. It tends to be rush people with his kind of low-key, crafty striking, and then get you against the cage, kind of grind you out, look to take you down. That ain't working against Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix, if there is going to be grappling exchange in this fight, I'm comfortable that he submits Mario Batista pretty comfortably. His jiu-jitsu, his BJJ is on another level. He's one of the best grapplers in the bantamweight division, in MMA as a whole. So if there is going to be that Mario Batista kind of game plan, Patchy Mix is getting him. He's going to fold him like laundry. He's going to get him in the submission, and I really do feel like we're going to see a grappling heavy game plan from Patchy Mix as well. I see him being the a pressure in this fight. I see him pressuring Mario Batista, looking to take him down, and even on the feet as well. There's nothing that like Patchy Mix hasn't seen on the regional scene against the likes of Sergei or Pettis and other guys that Mario Batista is going to bring. Mario Batista is a high-paced fighter with both a grappling and striking, you know, point of view, but he's not really dangerous. Patchy Mix is significantly more dangerous. I think it's competitive on the feet, and I think when it comes to grappling, what's Mario Batista going to do? Hold him against the cage? Patchy Mix is notorious for good takedown defense, and even then, he's got much more devastating grappling than Batista. So I'm going Patchy Mix to get the submission in the second round. I think we are going to see Patchy Mix take this fight to the mat, showcase his elite BJJ, and get the submission over Mario Batista in the second round, who's been preparing for Marlon Vera, which is a completely different style to Patchy Mix. Marlon Vera is a kind of a progressively better striker. Patchy Mix, BJJ guy, completely different style. Anyway, keys to victory for Mario Batista, it is to use pressure boxing on the feet, Batista him against the fence to just lose even more of the fan base, and constant pressure, avoid being backed up, get him against the cage, hold him against the cage, avoid being backed up, and just keep pressuring Patchy Mix, get him against the cage, grind him out, and look to get a pretty uneventful decision win. But do use your pressure boxing as well. I feel like the pressure boxing of Mario Batista is kind of what worked in the fight with Aldo. And for Patchy Mix, pressure him. Don't you be the one on the back foot and just take him down and dominate him. You're a significantly better grappler. Use your elite takedown defense when against the cage, because Patchy Mix is notorious for elite takedown defense. You don't want to be getting taken down by Batista. Use the elite takedown defense, get off, break the clinch, take him down, get the submission. Game plan for both of those guys. Then we've got the featured fight of the night. Kind of controversial how this has been the featured fight. We've got Mexico's biggest hater in Joe Pyfer against a human refrigerator, Kelvin Gastelum. This is going to be interesting. You've got a KO artist who apparently hits harder than Francis Ngannou in Joe Pyfer against a guy who's known for an iron chin in Kelvin Gastelum. So it is going to be an interesting fight, but with Gastelum moving up to the middleweight division, I really question the discipline and the heart of Kelvin Gastelum in MMA these days. I'm going to go Joe Pyfer to win this one by TKO in the second round. Joe Pyfer is absolutely devastating. He is a devastating puncher. I know Kelvin Gastelum's known for having a good chin, but I am kind of on the hype train of Joe Pyfer a little bit with the punching power. And we've seen Kelvin Gastelum get hit so many times. That fight with Chris Curtis, he got wobbled like 3 times. Even in the fight with D-Rod, he was getting hit, and that was a controversial win as well. On top of that, the grappling of Joe Pyfer. He trains out of Sean Brady's gym. Joe Pyfer's got decent grappling. He had a grappling matchup with GM3, beat him. He choked Abdullah Razak Al Hassan out cold as well. I feel like the grappling of Joe Pyfer is going to come into play too. I really don't see a game plan for Kelvin Gastelum in this fight. Outdog Joe Pyfer. You barely beat Daniel Rodriguez. You got a robbery win over Chris Curtis, who wobbled you in that fight as well. I think Joe Pyfer, being the fairly rangy and insanely powerful striker he is going to crack Kelvin Gastelum in the second round, get the TKO ground and pound finish over Kelvin Gastelum. I think he's going to crack the chin. And even if he doesn't, I'm still picking Joe Pyfer to win. I know we got outstruck by Jack Hermanson, but Jack Hermanson's got pretty underrated striking, and the grappling of Joe Pyfer as well, I think is going to come into play in this fight with Kelvin Gastelum. So I'm going to go with Joe Pyfer. I think he cracks the chin of Kelvin Gastelum. If there's going to be a guy to crack the chin of Kelvin Gastelum, it's going to be a guy with devastating power like Joe Pyfer. Look at what he did to Marc-Andre Barriault. Slumped him out cold. And I know we've seen Marc-Andre Barriault and he's not got the best chin, but that was brutal. That was like Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley shit. Face first to the canvas. So I'm going Joe Pyfer to get the TKO in the second round. Keys to victory for Kelvin Gastelum. It's to stay defensively sound and don't brawl. Sometimes brawling is the game plan for Kelvin Gastelum, not against Joe Pyfer. Keep the striking sharp and technical. Like I said, if there is a flow of Joe Pyfer, it would be the technical strike, and we saw it in the fight with Hermanson. And pressure him. Get him up against the cage. Don't get backed up and slept like Marc-Andre Barriott. And for Joe Pyfer, look to crack the Mexican chin. I'm sure that would be a massive accomplishment of Joe Pyfer to beat a Mexican. Back him up against the cage and unload on him. And don't be afraid to grapple. If you're not dominating him on the feet, if you think you might be losing, shoot a takedown. Joe Pyfer's definitely the better grappler. Look to take it to the mat. Look to take down Kelvin Gastelum and maybe do some damage with the ground and pound there. Then we've got the co-main event. A lot of people are saying this is very hyped up because of the build-up that they've had. And you know what? I've got to give it to these women. At least they're trying to hype up a fight in women MMA. One of the biggest rivalries, if not the biggest rivalry right now in women MMA. Julianna Pena looks to defend her plastic belt against Kayla Harrison. I'm going Kayla Harrison. I don't see a game plan. I don't see a key to victory for Julianna Pena in this fight. I mean, first of all, the grappling. Kayla Harrison is a significantly better grappler. The physicality that she's got for the women's bantamweight division, she is so muscular for this division. I know it kind of gets talked about a lot, but she comes from this judo-heavy background. The way she dominated Holly Holm, even in her last fight against Ketlen Vieira, I know she kind of showed not the best finishing ability in that fight with Ketlen Vieira, and she looked human and everything, but Ketlen Vieira's got decent grappling as well. And Julianna Pena, she beat Raquel Pennington, but she barely won that fight. I thought Pennington did enough to win the decision. And the striking of Julianna Pena is so bad to the point where even though Kayla Harrison's pretty green in MMA, it's not that much better to the point where she's going to be able to dominate Kayla Harrison with the grapple or the striking. So I just don't see a game plan for, unless Kayla Harrison gets gassed out in the later rounds because of the weight cut and the muscle mass that she's got, and she's completely exhausted, and Julianna Pena can somehow get a finish. I really don't see her winning this fight. I think we're going to see a Kayla Harrison masterclass. She impressed me in that last fight against Ketlen Vieira. Fair enough, she might not have been able to get the finish, but it showed that she can go 3 rounds pretty comfortably. It showed that she's got a decent gas tank. And we saw in the UFC, first couple of fights in the UFC so far, that the grappling's on a different level. Julianna Pena definitely a lot more well-rounded, but her striking is awful. We've seen the clip of her against Amanda Nunes. She's not dominated Kayla Harrison on the feet, so I think Kayla Harrison takes down Julianna Pena, rides out a decision win in this fight. It could be competitive in the later rounds because, like I said before, we don't know the game plan of Kayla Harrison, but I've seen it being a pretty uneventful decision where Kayla Harrison just kind of ragdolls Julianna Pena, takes her down, trips her, gets top position and just kind of rains down ground and pound, stays in position and gets the decision win over Julianna Pena. The keys to victory for Julianna Pena is going to be to avoid grappling, just avoid any grappling. You know, she liked to initiate the grappling against Raquel Pennington. Don't do that. Don't do what Holly Holm did and try and clinch against Kayla Harrison. You'll end up on your ass. Look to simply force her into a dogfight and break her down through 5 rounds because, like I said, if there's something we don't know about Kayla Harrison, it's how good she is at going 5 rounds. We've seen Pena do that enough times now. And for Kayla Harrison, back her up, grab her, chuck her, and maul her, as it is in every single one of her fights in UFC and what we saw in PFL. Put the pressure on Julianna Pena and make sure to conserve the stamina across 5 rounds. I do think that Kayla Harrison has the capability to get her out of there because of the submission ability that she's kind of had as she transitioned over to MMA. So I do think that Kayla Harrison has the ability to submit Julianna Pena, but with that being said, conserve the stamina. You don't want to try and get a finish too quickly and then get out-dogged across 5 rounds. Save the bantamweight division, please, Kayla Harrison. Let's make the super fight between you and Amanda Nunes, but I'm going to go with Kayla Harrison to win this one by decision. Then we have the rematch that nobody asked for. Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley's very lucky to get this rematch. Now, I am expecting a different version of Sean O'Malley in this fight, and I know a lot of people have been expecting this too, but based off what we saw in this, I mean, let's go back to the first fight. We saw Sean O'Malley kind of on the back foot, not really having an offensive game plan in that fight. And we saw a lot of Merab being the one in the offense, taking down Sean O'Malley. Didn't really keep him down for too long, but he was kind of prioritizing volume takedowns, which surprised me how O'Malley wasn't really able to catch him. And we pretty much just saw Merab do enough to, land enough takedowns and do enough with the grappling to be able to beat O'Malley in that fight. And I've seen nothing from O'Malley since that fight to make me want to pick him again. We've seen Merab against Umana Magomedov. He looked phenomenal against Umana Magomedov. It was one of the best fights this year. And his stamina's on a completely different level too. And for Sean O'Malley, I know he's going to be, I expect a different version of Sean O'Malley. I expect him to be offensively more, I expect a lot more output from Sean O'Malley in this fight. I don't think he's going to be waiting for Merab to come in so we can clip him. I expect him to be kind of on the front foot a little bit more. So I do expect a different version of Sean O'Malley, but I can't just pick him to win based off what I expect. So I'm going to go with Merab Dvalishvili to win by decision. And by the way, I don't think I've ever picked Merab to win the fight on this channel, which is crazy. I picked Cejudo to beat him. I picked O'Malley to beat him. I picked Nurmagomedov to beat him. This is the first time I'm picking Merab to win a fight, so please don't jinx this Merab. But I just think it's going to be the volume takedowns as well. And if Merab's smart, I do think we're going to see Merab kind of keep O'Malley down for longer because I think when I'll go into the keys to victory, but I think when you're facing a guy as devastating as Sean O'Malley, I do think Merab, the best advantage or the best kind of key to victory for him to win this fight is to prioritize keeping him down for longer, rather than taking him down, letting him back up, shoot another takedown, take him down, let him back up, because of the devastating power that O'Malley has. So I do expect O'Malley to be on the front foot. We saw it in that 5th round in the first fight, where he's able to kind of damage Merab with that body kick, but I've got to go with Merab to win this fight. I honestly think he's the greatest bantamweight of all time, and I don't see anybody beating Merab in this division right now. I think stylistically the toughest test for Merab would probably be somebody like Corey Sandig and not Sean O'Malley, so I'm going to go Merab Dvalishvili to win this one by decision. Volume and also control time, I think he's going to beat Sean O'Malley. The stamina of Merab, I think he's phenomenal. We've never seen anybody like him in the bantamweight division before. Sean O'Malley's shown me absolutely nothing since the first fight to make me want to pick him. And even in, like, you look at Sean O'Malley's career. Before Merab, he faced Marlon Vera, a punching bag who's now on a losing streak. Aljamain Sterling clipped him coming in. Peter Yan, that was a very, very controversial fight. Even the fight with Pedro Munoz, Sean O'Malley wasn't dominating him, and he's already lost to Merab, so I'm going to go with Merab Dvalishvili to win the fight, just like I did the first time around, by decision. Keys to victory for Merab. Like I just said, less volume takedowns, much more emphasis on control time, much bigger consequences with O'Malley. Merab's game plan isn't usually to take people down and hold them there the entire round. It's to take people down, let them back up, take people down, let them back up, and so on and so forth. If you're against a guy with, you know, consequences as big as O'Malley, where if you fuck up, you can get knocked out cold, I'd recommend Merab to kind of look to kind of keep him on the ground for longer and fake the takedowns constantly. It worked in the first fight. You kept O'Malley guessing. Do it again in the rematch. And for Sean O'Malley, the keys to victory is to keep Merab on the back foot. You don't want to be getting pressured by Merab. Look to clip Merab coming in. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one. And stay busy on the feet in between takedowns. Don't just back up hoping to clip him and hope for a lucky Hail Mary. Stay busy. You know, you went in that 5th round when you put the pressure on Merab and you know, landed that body kick. It worked. It was damaged. Just stay busy on the feet in between takedowns. That's the keys to victory. So my overall parlay, not really a parlay, but if I had to rank every kind of pick in terms of confidence, my high confidence picks is going to be Joe Pyfer, Kevin Holland, Patchy Mix, Wang, Cong, Julianna Yu, and Azamat Murzakanov. My medium confidence picks are going to be Merab, Kayla Harrison, Joshua Van, Khaos Williams, and Marquel Mederos. So my low confidence picks are going to be Waldo, Cortes, Acosta, and Quinlan, Salkilld. Now my predictions for the bonuses and awards of this card. The first bonus, I think, will go to Kevin Holland by knocking out Vicente Luque. Yeah, this is I kind of feel like this is a tailor-made matchup for Kevin Holland. Doesn't have to face a devastating grappler. Faces a guy that's very hittable, who's towards the end of his career, who takes a lot of damage. I do think we're going to see Kevin Holland showcase that power in the 170-pound division, crack Vicente Luque, get one of the few, I think the only knockout on the main card, and I think he's going to get a bonus for that. So I think one of the bonuses will be Kevin Holland. I think the second bonus will be to Patchy Mix. If Patchy Mix can beat Mario Batista, the UFC are going to reward him nicely. And they're going to do it anyway because he's got a lot of hype anyway. So I think they will give Patchy Mix a bonus. Even if he gets to a decision and has a pretty dominant display over Mario Batista, I can see him winning a bonus. But I think if he gets the cherry on top with the submission, which I think he will do, I see Patchy Mix getting a performance too. And I think the third performance bonus will go to Ju Zhang Yu. They usually like to dish out a bonus on the prelims. And I think we are going to see Ju Zhang Yu look pretty dominant in this fight with Saragih, get the knockout and get the third bonus. The prospect of the card is going to be Joshua Van. One of the more talked about flyweights right now, super active, some of the best boxing in this division, really promising for the 125-pound division. Honestly, has top 5 potential. So a guy that I would be looking out for would be Joshua Van, the prelim headliner of the card. The fight of the night, I know I picked this to end in a finish, but if it doesn't end in a finish, I think Joe Pyfer and Calvin Gastelum. They both like to brawl, they both hit pretty fucking hard, and they both have a solid chin. So I think the fight of the night could be Pyfer and Gastelum. And the snooze fest of the night, despite the way they've hyped it up, I think Pena and Kayla Harrison, I think whoever wins this fight, it's not going to be a fun fight. You know, it's not Aldana versus Nunes. It's not going to be a fun, competitive, striking matchup. It's going to be via grappling, whoever wins, and I don't see either of them finishing one another. So I think this is probably going to be the snooze fest of the night. On top of that, it is 25 minutes, so that's my snooze fest of the night pick. But those are my picks for UFC 316. Let me know if you agree, disagree with the picks I made. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching.